Welcome back. On paper, New Hampshire's 1st District is still a jump ball for Democrats and Republicans, but the incumbent we just heard from, Chris Pappas, won by his largest margin yet in 2022. So it's going to take a unique GOP candidate to defeat him. Hollie Noveletsky is hoping she's the one in 2024, and she joins us this morning on CloseUp. Hollie,
thanks for being here. Thank you very much for having me.
So you are first and foremost a business person. You're in industry building structural steel. You know all about costs and what's driving inflation. Federal spending, obviously a key component of that. But I want to ask you, even if you're able to get to Washington, cut spending, get a rein on things, there's no real guarantee, is there, that consumer prices will go down?
There isn't. We do need to cut spending, though. We can't be signing these big omnibus bills that we don't know what's in it. I, as a business owner, would never sign a contract and then say, let's figure out afterwards what's in it. We need to cut the budget. We need to have single-issue bills, but we also need to provide for our people. We need to stop incentivizing this illegal immigration. We need those scarce resources to go to take care of people here at home, such as our elderly, our veterans, our mentally ill, our elders, if I didn't just say that. But we need to take care of all of our people here, and we need to, those are scarce resources. We need to be very careful with them.
We'll get to immigration in a moment, but what can you do to help if that spending isn't necessarily going to help the average consumer?
What can I do? It's really down to the budget. We have to stop making extra money and spending money that we don't have. We can't be adding this debt to our grandchildren. I have 2 young grandchildren, and I can't be leaving this to them. So it's all about cutting spending. You
know, you mentioned young people. They're really boxed in by the way this sort of economy works now. They're saddled with massive student debt if they decide to go to college. When they graduate, they might find a job that probably isn't covering the costs of housing anymore. And certainly a big problem right now, automobiles and auto insurance are now becoming increasingly out of reach. If government intervention isn't the answer, how is lower spending and tax cuts going to help those young people, at least in the short term?
So tax cuts and lower spending is going to add to lower costs for small businesses. Small businesses are the #1 employer of people. It's going to make more jobs, put more people to work. We need to put people back to work. The unemployment rate of being 1.9, everyone touts that as being wonderful, but it really is not. It's driving up wages, which is driving up costs, which is driving up inflation. So we need to get people back to work and get back to a steady state.
You mentioned immigration. You recently visited the northern border.
I did.
What did you see there that confirms that you think it's a good investment of state law enforcement resources to have all those people up there?
Okay. First, I'd like to say I believe in immigration. My family is full of immigrants. My grandmother came over in 1913 from Russia to get away from pogroms. My mother and my uncle were born in Brazil. My stepmother was born in Israel. My aunt was born in Canada. So I believe that we need to really help bring in people who want to be here legally. Illegal immigration is where we really need to make an impact. When we went up to the Canadian border, we saw several things. One is I learned that Pittsburgh is the largest landmass town east of the Mississippi. It only has 2 police officers, 3 border patrol. They have positions, but they can't fill them. Then there's the telecommunication issue. They are severely limited by telecommunication. And there's an old treaty from 1962 that was updated in 1965. And it's between Canada and the United States. Canada didn't want to hear our telecommunications, so we have to limit the strength of our signals. They have cameras at the border. We have cameras at the border, but to get it to dispatch, it has to be pinged over multiple sites. It can delay the transmission up to 10 minutes, and then when they want to get it out to the officers, it's again delayed. So this delay is really hindering people. They're finding that on the northern border that people and drugs are coming south, drugs and money are going north. You're on these very rural roads along the border, and they're finding like a stick in the middle of the road and these black duffel bags. They see plates coming up from Massachusetts, picking up these duffel bags full of drugs and then taking them back. They can't, because of the lack of telecommunication, get timely law enforcement, plus the lack of law enforcement. Also, they're finding that people who come over the border in Pittsburgh, they're being taken to Vermont, processed, and then released. and then they come back into New Hampshire because that's the main route into Massachusetts. So there's a big issue up there. And we need to remember that there's a big focus on the southern border, but the northern border is really important. Most of the people on the terrorist watch list and the 9/11 terrorists came through the northern border. We can't take our eye off that. So I applaud Governor Sununu for his alliance on the northern border, but I think we need to do more.
Your potential opponent in November, Congressman Chris Pappas, is joining a task force on immigration. I know as a Republican, you're saying, hey, too little, too late right now.
What I'm saying is, you know, we need action, not discussion. So to have a pragmatic group of Democrats who want to get together and discuss what's going on. We had a secure border 3.5 years ago. In one day, in a swipe of a pen, that border was destroyed. We have the tools in the toolbox. We don't need a new bill. We don't need discussion. We just need President Biden to sign the bills, or to sign the executive orders to put them back in place. Stay in Mexico, end catch and release, end all this incentive. We have those tools in the toolbox. We know they work. They worked in the past. Put them back into place. This is just political. The election is in 6 months, and all of a sudden, oh, let's look at the border. Let's have a discussion about it. No, let's end it. We can do that. We did it. We started the problem in one day. We can end it in one day. Let Border Patrol do their job. You
said something I want to circle back to. You said your stepmother is from Israel. Do you still have family in Israel right now? What do you think of what's going on right now and where the line should be drawn between self-defense and potentially going too far in Gaza?
I do not think they went too far. I think that when was the last time we remember babies being put in an oven? Okay. Israel did not ask for this war. War is messy. Hamas brought this war to Israel's door and actually brought it into the house and killed children, raped and tortured, and took hostages. They're bullies. They're bullies on a world stage, and we all know what happens with a bully. If you just push back and say, no, don't do that, they're going to come back with a vengeance. They need to be taken out.
Are you taken aback at all by, obviously, Israel was attacked, and they're making a response right now. Are you taken aback right now by how many Americans are opposed to what Israel is doing?
I am amazed at how quickly this anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic rhetoric has flared up. I have a pin that I was given by the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire, and it's a picture of New Hampshire and Israel with a heart. And I was up at UNH speaking, and it was, excuse me, it was evening. And I had to think for a minute, do I feel safe walking across the campus wearing this pin? I did not take it off, but it made me think twice.
On the seacoast, we are seeing more and more flooding events, whether it's those high tides, whether it's weather-related. What measures, if any, would you support in Congress to combat climate change or help the property owners there who are seeing this flooding more consistently now?
I would have to look at specifically what's going on with the insurance. I know they're having difficulty getting insurance, and I haven't dug into that more, but I would look at that. As far as energy, I think we need to be energy independent. We need to return to being energy independent. There is a right place for green energy and renewables, but we'll never be, not in the foreseeable future, completely dependent on it. We need to go back to being completely energy independent, put in the infrastructure for green and renewables, and so that we can control the transition over to that portion that can be serviced by that.
Let's talk about the Republican ticket. If you're on the nominee, you're going to be sharing it with former President Donald Trump. I don't think it's possible to have a more pro-Trump candidate for the Republicans than they did in 2022 with Caroline Leavitt. Congressman Pappas beat her by his largest margin yet. So it seems like voters kind of, I don't know if they settled that question, but they certainly had something to say about it. Are you going to be running as a 100% pro-Trump candidate in this race?
I am running as a 100% we need to get rid of Biden candidate. Anyone but Biden. I mean, he has really destroyed this country. And if Trump obviously is going to be our nominee, I will support him.
Does it change your opinion of him or your support of him at all if he is convicted in any of the cases he's facing right now?
I would support anyone but Biden at this point.
Do you view those court cases against Trump as legitimate?
There are an awful lot out there. I just saw the Fannie Williams response. I was really disappointed in the results. I think she should have been removed.
Let's say you're elected. You know, we know that former President Trump has said he wants to take such robust action on the immigration issue right away that he's going to be a, quote, dictator on day one. If he does want to ignore some laws or violate the Constitution, as a member of Congress, how much leeway would you give him?
Well, you can't violate the Constitution. That's our basis, so you can't do that. But we do have laws in place, catch and release. We have to stop that. If you come into contact with law enforcement and you break our laws, you have to be deported. We have these bills, we have these laws in place, and we need to enforce them. And you don't have to break the Constitution to do that.
All right. Hollie Noveletsky, thank you for joining us on Close Up, and we'll see you out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much.